here today to do an opening report for basically for a friend. He wants something aggressive and tactical, and I personally I like the problem of tactical players that if you play like usually D4 and do go for like the London or something simple like that. If you're very good with tactics and you're kind of a beginner, and I mean very good, I mean better than most people you're rating. There's a good chance that those lines are just boring, and it makes it easier to blunder because you're not paying attention because you feel like a lot of things are just very simple, and you're just making moves like I'm supposed to this here, and it kind of dulls your mind. I think unless you're a positional player and you like those type of setups. Um, Pretty much what I would recommend for if you want to get your use your tactical skills because I believe you're I think it was almost 2,000 in tactics almost and like 700 rated. So I think this right here is a good way to first start using your tactical skills at your level. And what I mean is, in the King's Gambit, they can accept, they can basically decline the gambit, or they can do a counter gambit. I'm assuming around 700, you might not really see the counter gambit, but I'm gonna show it really quick, just so you don't fall for a trap. And the trap is if you take here, this is check, and you're pretty much in bad. Yeah, you're bad. If you go up here, that right here will be that's pretty much in a really bad spot you will be in. All right, and that's basically really bad. I mean, he can just basically come in. Where's it at? Sorry about that. Yeah, if you go here, you could pretty much come in and call it check if you wanted, and I mean, only really move is to block, but it doesn't really help much. And the king, I mean, if he moves over here, let's say for example in this position, it's basically like you're really exposed. It's actually mate in five here, but I doubt anyone will find it. But I mean not anyone, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people can find it. But it's just a really bad spot. You don't want to ever take that pawn, the e pawn. It's really bad. And if you don't move your king up and you move this pawn up, then he gets to take the rook. So it's just really bad. So for the gambit, um, for the gambit itself, the Falk here counter gambit, if you encounter that, you do not take with you don't take this way. If you're going to capture it all, you can capture this way. If you're going to capture it all, if you're not going to capture, then you can play knight f3. That's perfectly fine. You can play this. That's perfectly fine if you wanted to. All right. I'm assuming that, and if they attack, you can just capture. You're pretty much okay. I mean, if he tries something like this, you can just go ahead and bring your queen in and call it check, and it's really not that great for him because you can just take here, and the rook is basically gone no matter what. So if he takes, you just take the rook. So it's not Falkirk kind of gambit. Yeah, you can just play knight. I would play knight f3 to be honest. Most people capture because that's what we're told to do online. This moves perfectly fine. I showed why. It's like if they just basically just move to a take and then move to like target your piece without thinking, then they just basically fell for something simple and it's a tactic. Um, let's say they capture this way. That's the accepted. Um, there's so much stuff in a lot of theory and a lot of games, but I will tell you the basics. The basics is knight f3. The reason why that's the basics is that you kind of prevent the queen from coming in and calling check, and then you can bring out your pieces, and you have this half open file of the rook, and you kind of when you bring your pawn up, you're attacking this right here. You kind of want your bishop over here to attack the square because your knight is ready to jump in at any time. And yeah, it looks pretty simple. This knight usually goes here. Sometimes it's really you can watch a lot of stuff on it. There's a lot of theories and a lot of opening traps, but that's kind of where I recommend for e4, e5 is this right here. So you can use your tactics in the opening immediately. Like if you blunder, you lose. Let's say, for example, there's another thing here. that I would like to address, and that's this move here. This move here is a very common way to try to fight it, and the idea is to bring your bishop here. Let's say you play a move like d4 because you're not paying attention, and he goes here, calls check. You'd be tempted to take. It makes sense, right? But if you take and he calls check, what ends up happening is that after you move your king, your queen pretty much is in an aggressive place and so is pawn. You're kind of, and let's say the king doesn't go there. Let's say you decide I want to go here because of the pawn and you want to attack the pawn. You want to like be more aggressive. Let's say you do something like that. It doesn't really matter. He can develop either way, and your king's kind of in the center, and he has a queen out already. So that's really bad, even though it looks very normal. So I would suggest after bishop to e7. I kept forgetting the word of it. Bishop to e7. You can play the bishop or the queen here. I like the bishop better just because of castling, and that way if he does go ahead and come here for whatever reason, let's say if he did take, he takes back. It's kind of a little bit a similar situation, but not exactly. And I think it's a little bit safer. And you have like a bishop already developed. So if he goes ahead and develop more, you kind of already have a piece kind of out, and it kind of can just go here and have a little structure here. But that's only if he does that. It's actually kind of bad for black to do that, by the way. It's like an engine considered like a negative, little. Well, it's not bad for black, bad for white a little bit, like a -1 or so. But it becomes very tactical, and you have to kind of push things out and start attacking the queen and stuff. So it's not that bad at all. If you want to avoid something like this, for example, let me see. I want to try and remember the line that I used to use. I'm not sure if it was this word over here. Is the one I used to go for. Trying to remember. Threatening check and capture at the same time. And then you develop the bishop. Yeah, I think this was it. And then I can eventually bring the rook around, and eventually, yeah, it wasn't that bad. And you have like a pretty good center, but it's not. That's the only thing I don't like about it is the bishop move right here. There's not much really to do to stop it. Another try would be. Where's it at? I'm wondering if that was it. Yeah, this was a line that I used. I'm sorry. This was the line that I used, and I castled here. And it looks super crazy. It looks super crazy. But if he takes and you move your king right here, you're perfectly safe. And you're developed. You have your rook, knight, this out, and this out. This was the line. I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember it. I thought I knew it, so I decided just to go and just talk about it. This was the line. All right. The issues that I showed you earlier were the issues I had. So you got to see the issues that I had and then how I try to fix it. And this is the line that I did. All right. I thought I could remember it, even though it's been for a couple of months since I played it. But yeah, it's not. This is probably the best move for them. But if they don't play that, and let's say they play something else, let's say they play something like knight to c6 here, you can sacrifice your bishop here. You really can if you wanted. And after he captures, you basically win the bishop back, and you call it check. So like you're not losing a piece, and he can defend if he wants. And it's not a worse or better. It's not really super favorable. You can see the engine right here, unless the engine's not moving. I don't think it is. But yeah, he can't take it because the pen. You can bring this out. You can eventually bring your pieces out, and the king. And now his king's the one that's stuck in the weird position. So this is the line that I like. I like bishop c4 for that reason. You'd have to, for the most part, not remember. You don't have to remember a whole lot of tactics. You just have to not. You just basically have to play. But against this line right here, I would definitely recommend bishop c4, and then after this, just letting him take. Remember the castle. Don't take this pawn. This pawn is a shield for you. It's kind of weird, but it is. And they also have knight to d6. And for knight to d6, you don't have to how do I say? For knight to d6, you don't really have to worry about much. I usually play d4 here, and he can decide which way to capture. And if he captures this way, you just take back with the queen, and it's kind of a normal-ish game. If he takes this way, for example, well, now that the pawn's up, you can actually take with the bishop, and you basically traded these pawns off. So it's not that bad. And basically, the basic setup for it is usually you kind of want to have your knights here and your bishops here and the pawns like this. That's usually kind of the setup. It's kind of the same setup almost every other setup, to be honest, for the King's Gambit. And it's easier to just bring your pieces out and attack because after this is gone and this is moved, it's usually a bit easier to get your pieces out and attacking compared to d4. All right, so that's it for the King's Gambit part. I don't want to get into a lot of theory and stuff because there's a lot of videos on it. And the most important thing about this is that it's you get a lot of tactical lines, all right? And if you want to do your puzzles right away, like you want to play like you play puzzles, you want to play that because it's going to help you out with that. Now, what if he plays something else? What if he plays d5? Well, my favorite line is d4 for the Black Mark Gambit. Now, if your opponent takes, I would just go here, threatening the pawn. Your opponent has a lot of he has a few different responses he can do, just so you know, to defend the pawn, if he's even going to think about defending the pawn. But let's say he defends it with the knight. You can just go here. You're not really sacrificing this pawn, and the reason why you're not, because if he takes it, you can take it back. There's two different ways. It doesn't matter how you choose. If you choose the bishop for any reason, and the queen for any reason, I apologize. If you choose the queen for any reason, and let's say he moves his bishop out the way, he's pretty much in trouble because of this. You know, and obviously he can defend it with that way, but you end up having this knight here, which is threatening a fork. And if he doesn't handle it well, you know, it's just going to be pretty bad, you know. Let's say he targets if he stays, let's say he targets the queen. I mean, the king can't move. You're trading a knight for a queen, you know. He pretty much would have to block this way. This is the way he has to block if he wants to have any chance at all. And even then, you can just come in with another piece. It gets pretty aggressive. I like it. And you can figure out a lot of stuff yourself. That's the point of, you know, playing puzzles aggressive. If you don't like it, let's say, for example, if you go here, I think there's a common trap after here. And I think this is it right here. I think this is it. Because a lot of people would take the pawn, and if you attack the queen, would go over and attack the other pawn, and then after castle, would decide to go ahead and attack your queen. And the trap here is, if he takes your queen, that's checkmate. So it's a pretty well known trap. And there's a lot of different ways to defend, like going here, for example, is a way to defend. But then if he defends, you can take and threaten the rook. And there's lots of ways to go wrong. The queen's best move is to go here, which is really odd, but it's to counteract. If he doesn't do that, everything else is almost completely lost. I'm not going to explain everything. Just for tactic purposes, you can look at it. I think it's really good. I think you would like it. The other one is a video I sent you on the Alpine where there's like a trap pretty much for this. And if they decide to attack here, it showed this trap right here. It's very, you know, where you win a piece pretty simply. I do recommend the Alpine. The only problem is that if the person doesn't play d6 at all, let's say they just start with knight to f6, it kind of changes lots of things. I had to deal with that a lot. And you kind of don't want to do that because you're like, you kind of don't want to deal with that because obviously you want to do the trap and be very tactical. But let's say you attack, you can decide to just run around the board. And if he decides to move the knight anywhere, like if he was going to move it back or move it forward, you know, if he moves it forward, like you can keep kicking him, and then he goes over here. And what ended up happening is your pawn structure is a little messed up, but all your pawns are advanced and your bishops are starting to get some type of scope, you know, except for this one. And you can just push your pawn. You know, you can do that, you know. And if he captures, I mean, you can capture back if you wanted, but then you can take here. I mean, you can also play here and have a very good, strong center. And, yeah. And if he takes, you can push. And where's the knight going to go? You know? I mean, the knight really doesn't have much of anywhere but here. So it's not really all that bad. And you have like a pretty good lot of space, and your pieces have pretty good mobility. And I think it's pretty decent. So yeah, if they decide just to attack your pawn right away and not play d6, that's something, you know. Another thing some people do is play here, and there's not really much to do to avoid it. You go here, he goes here. I mean, you kind of, since d6 hasn't been played, you kind of have to fortify this and then find ways to look for attacks. You know, you can even throw his pawn in there at some point. If you wanted to be careful and move your knight back, for example, you can always move your knight back, for example, if you wanted to. And that way you're able to, you don't want to put, you got the queen and the knight here, and they're being attacked twice. So you still can do this because it's defended. And it looks a little weird, but let's say he just does something like that. You can end up trying to rip this open because at some point you're going to want to bring your bishop out, your knight out, your queen out, and then castle queenside, and then have this open. You want to push this up and then have the king a bit more exposed, you know. Say you play something like that for no reason. I mean, it kind of, you know, you have an open file. So you can't push for something like that if they're not playing d6 and they're just doing this setup. You can do that. So that's pretty much it for the white side. For black, if I can flip the board. Okay. For black, I would think that the best thing, it doesn't matter too much if he plays e6 or d6. Let's say he goes here. You can easily just go ahead and if he plays this, I like the Budapest Gambit. very aggressive. You know, you can try to defend it, and you attack it. You know, you can defend it, and you can call check. You know, and he can defend it. This is bad, by the way. This is like a trap where I think you go here, and then if he goes after your bishop, let me try to remember it. If I take, he takes, I take, he takes, I take, and it's not. Does it matter no more? So what was the trap here? I think this was it. I'm trying to remember it though. Oh yeah, if I take it, he can trade it all off, but if he thinks he has a free piece, it'll be checkmate. That's what it was. Like this right here isn't. He can take it, and you can take it, and he can take it, and then if you take this, you're in trouble. You have to take here first, and then everything's traded off. You know, you castle and play a normal game. But there was a trap there if he decides to just take the bishop. So I do like that. It's pretty aggressive. For the most part, though, I'm assuming most people just play here, and then you can't do that. It doesn't work because you're just pinning the knight here, and it's not really the same thing. And if he goes here, you kind of forced to take it, and he's kind of in a little bad position, and just a lot of tactic stuff. And if he tries to kick your knight, you can just take. And everything's traded off, except for one difference is that he's going to be forced to defend his pawn. And he can just castle, and it's pretty much, you know, it's kind of whatever. But there's another thing here that that I really like, and that is that you can, it doesn't matter if he, doesn't matter, you can use this setup right here. Getting ready to push here, usually you block. But for the most part, this setup right here, it looks a little passive, but what you're trying to do is use the bishop. You can stack a pawn at some point, you can push to attack. The tactics involving in this are a combination of pawns, queen, and knights. Are basically a combination of your pawns, knights, and bishops early on. And you have to have some knowledge of, some positional knowledge, but for the most part, your tactics are involving just these pieces. In the opening, you pretty much have like some ideas to try to, and you want to rip this open. You don't want this to lock up here. You don't want to lock this in. You want to rip it open because of your bishop. You want your bishop to be attacking, and a lot of times you play on the queen side. If you can't play on the queen side and you're forced to play on the king side, a lot of times f5 is a move, and you basically, after your pieces move around and f5 is a move, your rooks come in and they basically open this area up, and this bishop here is attacking the queen side while you have all this stuff going on up here. So it's usually either or. I like it. I think it's very simple, and it's aggressive but in a different way. I like the Budapest Gambit even more, but I highly doubt you see the correct moves for it. I highly doubt you would see after this move here. I highly doubt you'll see this. But if you do, you can play it. And even if you did play it and someone took it, they may not even, I see a lot of people do that early on, and you just take the free pawn, and if they don't move this pawn, you make another free pawn, But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really simple. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of crazy lines and ideas and theory. There's lots of videos for all of that. I just wanted to get set up with an aggressive opening report that's very basic and simple. And that's kind of the rundown of the openings that I think would be good for you. So, I think that's pretty much it. I hope you like it. And I'll send it to you messenger, and I made it public so that people can watch it too. Someone else might like it if they're a tactical player. Yeah, that's all. All right, thank you for your time. I'm gonna head out now. All right, good luck.